Today we're looking at the new Gerber Versafix Pro and putting it up against the Kershaw Camp 10 and the Ontario SP8. Well, we have a budget-friendly machete-style chopper that we're looking at here today from Gerber with the Versafix Pro. Now, they also have the Versafix, which is slightly cheaper and doesn't have the balance points that this model does. This one's supposed to be a little bit better balanced, I guess, and that one's gonna be even a little bit cheaper. Now, the reason that I picked this up is mostly because it has a unique shape. It's lightweight at about 11 ounces, and it has a budget-friendly price. This guy going between like $35, $40, the Versafix version going for about $30. So it's very budget-friendly, Chinese-made, stainless steel. We'll talk about all of that today. So I wanted to run it up against some other blades that fall in that like $35 to $45 price point that are very similar. And the things that came to mind were particularly the Kershaw Camp 10 and the SP8. Both are right around that same price point. So we're gonna put these all head to head today. When you are on a budget, but you're wanting something to clear brush, use around the campsite as like a medium weight chopper, or a machete work, whatever it would be, does this fit a niche, or is it just too goofy and awkward to really make sense? That's what we're gonna look at today as we take a look at the Versafix Pro. So let's go ahead and get to it. Well, all right, folks, here we go. Let's talk about the business end of this blade. You can see they're really interesting texturing. Those are actual like layers on the steel. That's not like a spray-on coating that you're seeing, almost like a camo engraved. I don't know, it's really weird. Never seen anything like it. It's not gonna wear off on you. Now, the Gerber itself here is going to be the lightest of all three tools. This thing only weighs in at 11.5 ounces. That has to do a lot with not only the weight balancing holes that they've cut in there. Some of you will be concerned, particularly like this one, about strength. I have really cranked on this thing, really tried to get it to snap, and I can't get it to. So they've done a decent heat treat with the steel that we'll talk about in a moment. But that also is because the blade is going to be the thinnest as well at 0.13. The Camp 10 is going to be 0.2 inches thick, and the SP8 is going to be 1/4 inch thick. So this is very thin, it's very lightweight, and is really quick and nimble in the hand. That has it. Those are things that are going for it. Now, it has a very short grind, similar to the SP8. It is a saber grind, but it's very abrupt. It's very short, very abrupt, and then you have this big, large, flat portion right there. We got that large recurve into a large belly with an overall 9-inch blade and about an 8.25 inch actual, or 8.5 inch actual cutting edge. So it will also be the shortest of all three tools. The other two knives, the SP8 is 10 inches, the Camp 10 is 10 inches. The SP8 does have a cutting edge though, because of this very large ricasso. It has a cutting edge of 7.75 inches. So this will have about 3/4 of an inch longer cutting edge, but an overall blade length that is shorter. So it's the lightest, the compact, it's the most thinnest of the three that we are looking at here today in kind of the machete chopper world. So as I alluded to a little bit earlier, I couldn't seem to get this to cause any problems, these cut-ins. If you don't like that, but you like everything else in this video, you can get just the original Versafix. That will be slightly more blade heavy. This is more balanced, and that one will not have any cutouts. So if you're concerned about that for some reason, that is an option, and it's going to be cheaper, and we'll talk about that all in just a little bit. But one of the things that I noticed basically, and as we go through here and look at this, is that the steel, and we'll hit that first, is 3CR13 MOV, or 3CR13. Some places will say stainless steel. That's what it is. That's what we're looking at. It's a very cheap, budget-friendly steel. I have used it on a lot of like Schrade tomahawks, a couple Schrade larger knives. You'll find it on a lot of budget-friendly stuff out there. It is a stainless steel, so it will help fight against rust. I haven't really seen any rust issues. It tends to be rather soft and will tend to roll pretty easily. Haven't seen too much of that, but it's not my preference of steel when I'm looking at any type of real tool when I have options like what we have here on the ground in front of us. The Kershaw has, what is it, MN65, which is a Chinese high carbon, kind of similar to 1075, 1085, right around in that area. I've had amazing results with it on not only this Kershaw, but a couple CRKT tools as well. It is a high carbon. They've heat treated it very well. It will hold its edge better than this 3CR, a little bit easier to work with as well. It's easier to resharpen than the 3CR from what I found. Even though it's soft, it just kind of, it's a little screwy, and the grinding is very abrupt. This has a better relief edge, the Camp 10 does. And high carbons tend to, when heat treated properly, be a little more durable and deal with shock and stress better than stainless steels. So that's why I would prefer that. And then we have 1095 on the Spec Plus 8, the Machete, the SP8 Machete, and that is awesome and phenomenal. Super tough, super durable, and will hold its edge really, really well. Of all three, the Gerber steel that they decided to go with is my least favorite. It's doable, but not my preference when there are other tools of similar price, similar design, and size on the market. And so as I alluded to, and we'll talk about kind of the finer stuff first before we get to the more heavy duty work that you'd be doing with this, the grind angle was not great out of the box, guys. I really had to do some work just to get basic feather sticks and carving done with it. The way the recurve is pretty mild in here, but when I was doing feather sticking and carving and just trying to get, you know, enough fluff for a fire or something like that, it wasn't fun. It was really chunky, it wasn't making nice thin curls, and it's just got a really short, abrupt grind that just doesn't aid in the finer cutting tasks, really. When I even did like notching, trying to make a notch, it just, out of all three tools, it's my least favorite to do that with. It just really couldn't do that. The cutting just didn't really accelerate, even with the recurve. And so finer stuff, it's not my favorite tool to use. And if they had done better relief edges like you get on the Ontario and the Kershaw, then maybe it would have been a little bit better and maybe brought the grind up a little higher. That would have helped with that, this first grind right here. Or secondary grind, excuse me. That was an issue that I kept on seeing with the finer stuff. It's not, for how light it is, it should be a breeze, and how thin it is, it should be a great slicer. It's not. And when it comes to the finer work, the Kershaw Camp 10 is the best out of all three. It's the most well balanced, has the best relief edge and grind angle. It's got a healthy balance of thicker than the 0.13 of the Gerber, but thinner than the 1/4 inch of the Ontario, and with a higher grind, you know, like a high saber, really works well and really works to its advantage. So finer detail work, even cutting seatbelt, rope, those type of things, the Kershaw Camp 10 is the best. And then runner up to the Kershaw is going to be this SP8. It has a shorter grind, you know, more abrupt, kind of like the Gerber, but it's still higher than the Gerber, and it has a pretty decent relief edge on there, so I can get finer work done if I need to with it. And the matching saw back there makes it very easy for me to be able to do notches for triggers and traps and those type of things, and that helps with the finer work of not even having to use the edge to get a nice notch for a trigger or some paracord when I'm making maybe a tent peg or a trap. Now next up is batoning. This is another area, and actually this is my least favorite area for the Gerber. With the way that this has been designed, some things that were kind of interesting. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Now they have these teeth back here, which I tried to do notching. It can kind of sort of, if it's soft like aspen or something, you might be able to get a little bit of a notch going there. But what it's designed for is to grab, supposedly, to grab your baton stick when you're batoning and keep it from ricocheting and sliding off the blade. I didn't really see that. It just, I mean, maybe that kind of works, but I tended to chew up my baton stick a lot faster than either of these other two tools. Even with the saw teeth back here, I have this nice open area near the front that I usually will hit my baton stick with, and it doesn't damage it. Because of how thin and kind of gnarly those teeth are, it doesn't really grab the stick, it just kind of destroys the stick. And then on top of that, the way that they designed the front end of this is terrible. I just got to be real with you guys. You know, I love several Gerber products. I love the Gerber Center Drive. I love the Gerber Strong Arm. We got, like, there's so much good stuff that Gerber does make. A lot of it USA made. This one, I just feel like there was design features that are really kind of missing the mark. Because not only does this kind of gnar up your blade, but as soon as you get it embedded in or your baton stick, as soon as you get it embedded in the wood, you now only have this really abrupt tip going down, and it ricochets off and glances off the stroke every single time you hit the wood. And so it was so frustrating to baton wood with this, on top of the fact that it's only slightly over 1/8 of an inch thick. it doesn't have the thickness to help split that wood. So it just got jammed up constantly, bound up constantly in the wood that we were batoning, would ricochet off that front drop nose. Whereas these, being either square or slightly dropped, are much better at engaging the striking baton stick and keeping the energy on the tool and not glancing off of it. So it is not good. The other two are much better at batoning, and I was not impressed at all with it. So really, if it's really smaller than about 2 inches, I wouldn't try to baton it with this Gerber. And I would say that for batoning, the SP8 is definitely the winner. It has that short, abrupt grind. You do have to pound once or twice on it, but once it gets through just that first lip, it just explodes pieces of wood. And then the Kershaw Camp 10 is a close second to that SP8, and then again the Gerber really losing on the batoning. So then finally I want to get to chopping, and this is really the only area where I saw some use and value in the blade performance portion of the tool, because what I saw was that the sweet point right here for chopping did work well. The thin blade does bite in nicely into the pieces of wood that you may be doing. Now there's not a lot of weight on it. So what I found was if you're doing a lot of like thin delimbing, or just smaller branches and things like that, smaller trees, maybe like let's say 2 inches in diameter or less, it's actually very quick in the hand, not very fatiguing, didn't send any shocks through the handle or anything, and could do a pretty decent job of chopping and delimbing, and lots of like greenery because it's so thin. If it's green and you are actually doing like machete work, it will do a decent job and won't fatigue you and feel as heavy as like the SP8, and will just be much more nimble in the hand than your Kershaw Camp 10. Now the flip side being, if you have to actually do heavy chopping, it doesn't have enough weight or thickness to really pound through that wood, and becomes exhausting. You're having to strike a lot more often than these two larger ones. So if you are doing larger, like 3-inch in diameter pieces of wood that are harder, denser pieces, and you have to really get some good heavy swings in, the Camp 10 and the SP8 are better suited for that type of stuff, and will be better through harder, denser, larger pieces of wood. And between the two, I actually prefer the Kershaw Camp 10 because of that slight recurve that we have, that large belly, a good balance of weight, and the grind angles again really just make this thing sing and really connect well. The SP8 is really good with heavy stuff as well, but it doesn't have the recurve, and you kind of have to hit right down at a certain sweet spot to get the chops in that you want. And it's so heavy that though it really produces a good pounding and really takes out some chunks, it is the most exhausting of all three because of the weight that it has behind it. All right guys, so let's go ahead and hit price with you here, because that'll help us determine also just value, what we're getting out of these tools, and will help us as we look at other aspects to the tools here and as we go through this. So the Versafix Pro, the cheapest I found is over on GP Knives, which we'll have links for all these places below for you guys. It's about $33 right now over on GP Knives. It is, I believe, it's going to be $40 over on Blade HQ, and then it's $45 over on Amazon for the Pro version, which is kind of odd. Amazon's usually a pretty good price, but that's what I'm seeing now. Prices vary, fluctuate, but check out all those links below. In retrospect, just give us some perspective. The Kershaw is going to go for right around like $35 to $40 Amazon, Blade HQ, and GP Knives, and then the SP8 is going to be going for around $45 to $50. Again, on all three sites. So the Gerber is the cheapest depending on where you pick it up, and then the Camp 10 will be just slightly more expensive, and then the SP8 being the most expensive, but we're looking at Chinese made, and then the SP8 being USA made. So just things for us. So check out all those links below, and don't forget about all of our other links that we offer to you: Knockaround Sunglass Company, Backcountry.com, Mystery Ranch, and we just landed a link affiliate recently with 511 Tactical. So those will all be in the description below, and we just appreciate when you guys purchase through the links that we offer to you. Well, folks, in conclusion, as you can tell, I'm just not really digging this blade. It's a little awkward, it's goofy, the grind angles really aren't there for any sort of fine work at all. It's not gonna feather stick, it's not gonna make spears or notches very well at all. If you're doing chopping and you're going for stuff that's like the thickness of your thumb or pinky, it can definitely clear that well because of how lightweight it is and the recurve and all that. It's not that bad. So if you're looking for thin machete work, it might be able to get the job done. And batoning though, guys, is a joke. I mean, it's just not, it's so awkward, it's goofy, it is not fun to use. Both of the other blades are gonna be much better for most of the tasks that I just described to you, including the chopping of heavier stuff, just because they have more weight behind them and better grind angles. So in conclusion, I wouldn't go with it. I would go with one of the other two blades that you've seen here today. I think they're just gonna be better balanced, give you more material and more weight behind the blade to get a lot more work done for you at about the same price. So social media, cranking out stuff all the time. Become part of the GT family here. And we can't wait to see what, man, is that Mike? Yeah. What a turd. You're a turd. You are a little turd. Run, little turd. Thanks so much for coming over here today. I hope it's been informative, helped you guys out, entertained you, and given you the data that you need to make that wise decision. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media, throwing up stuff there all the time. I invite you to subscribe, become part of the GT family. Check out one of the other videos popping up because we're throwing up videos every single week. And finally, always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared, and we'll see you out there.